What makes a video game more enjoyable? Actual gameplay. I'm real tired of things being fetch this, talk to this guy and spam X to win or worse. Auto battlers which are away from keyboard to win. I wanna actually have to either think about what I'm doing or have to press more than one button. Games without gameplay are just chores. Edit how. Picked a good day to ghost Reddit entirely. Chores or good looking animated movies with some quick time events thrown in. Immersion. Getting really immersed into the world of the video game. One way this is accomplished is making a lot of things interactive in the game and learning the game world's lore or history. I don't mean sitting through a 15-minute lecture over the history of the game world looks pointedly at quern undying thoughts, but finding books, notes, plaques, signs, tapes, or other forms of information that give little glimpses into the history and overall dynamic of the world you're in makes it seem more real and makes you feel more connected to the world. Being able to have more than one playstyle. This is what got me to play all the way through Breath of the Wild where no other open world game has ever held my attention before. More specifically and perhaps more embarrassingly, the game didn't punish me for avoiding combat or finding creative solutions around a horde of enemies. My assault on Hyrule Castle was more akin to a break-in than an all-out attack. And heck, even the music reflected on my decision, rather than the game forcing me into a generic combat dungeon for the final build-up. Yet at the same time, the game has more complex combat options and plenty of tough enemies for the more combat-inclined players to go find and beat. It's the perfect mix. It took me a long while to figure out how flexible Breath of the Wild is. I climbed that ducking mountain to get the electro arrows from the lion dude and had no idea that I didn't need to fight him. It didn't even occur to me I could just sneak around him. So I spent 3 days on a low ass level learning how to whoop his ducking ass for no functional reason. Actual difficulty stats, not just enemies with 3 times the HP and you take 7 times more damage. Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal are good with this. Increasing the amount of enemies that are allowed to attack you, the frequency of their power attacks and aggression. Yeah, increasing the Doom difficulty was like, oh, this isn't so hard, hey I got this. Oh duck, no I don't. Pleasant music. I can't speak to the depression advice, but I can speak to the backlog, which I've seen a number of people struggle with. Video games are most likely not your profession, but rather a pastime. And having fun should be your top priority. That is to say, don't force yourself to play games you don't like. Don't force yourself to engage in activities that you don't enjoy and ignore people who tell you otherwise. Stop thinking of your backlog as a to-do list and start thinking of it as a suggestion box where you may go when you're stumped for something to play. Don't play if you don't feel like it. It's also quite acceptable to skip your backlog in favor of a soothing round of your favorite multip. This so good advice on consuming any content. Don't like the movie? Stop watching. Don't like the book? Pick another. Don't like the game? There are millions of others. Your time is yours, and you should spend it however the duck you enjoy. Good movement mechanics. Plain running is boring. Edit for all those replying to Titanfall 2. It's amazing. It's underrated. It frequently goes on sale. Go play it. You won't regret it. The Rumble Pack. Polish. I miss when games would have to be well polished before they were put into the market. Now, every company relies on post-release patches to get games where they should have been on release. Developers that love the game and are allowed to show it. Good movement. I feel like it gets so unlooked by some devs, but making the act of moving enjoyable can do wonders for the playability of a game. I'm not even talking about fancy parkour stuff necessarily, although these can be cool. Just tight responsive controls with the ability to do some more advanced stuff with skill does wonders for a game. It's why games like Hollow Knight feel so good to play. Completely agree. This is why Hollow Knight and Mario Odyssey are of my favorite games. When a game's tutorial understands that this isn't the first time I've ever played a game, press the left stick with to go forward. Christ, I've been headbutting the keyboard and bashing the controller on my knee this whole ducking time. That tutorial is funnier when you have to actively walk to the tutorial marker to learn of it. One of my favorite subtle jokes in Undertale is when you read a sign that tells you how to read signs. As somebody who enjoys a PGS, I really need character motivation in the character development. My pet peeve is when a character is shy, but then randomly becomes brave. Or somebody who is really aggressive and selfish, but then does something very kind for everybody. Without any reason, just a random massive change in personality. That breaks the immersion for me. I like to know why a character acts the way they do, why they have the personality they do, and to stay consistent with it. A simple backstory can help. Big RPG fan also. And I think you'll agree that, even though it is terrible when they do those random personality changes and just pretend it is character development, showing actual character development for those same things makes them amazing. If someone is selfish, show me them being selfish, but then show me why they are selfish, and if their personality is going to change, hint at it at first, make it a process. It can still be a big moment when they do their unselfish act. But it should be because they have invested in that moment and not just herp random personality change. Feeling like your actions have an effect on the world. I hate games that railroad you or make it seem like your choices don't really matter in the long run. This is one of the reasons I generally prefer sandbox games to more story-driven games. Interesting that you have the same reasoning, but the opposite conclusions than me. I feel open world games are boring because of the lack of impactful choice. Story-driven games like Pathfinder Kingmaker or Pillars of Eternity feel like I have way more impact on the story than any other game. Especially something like Oblivion or Skyrim. I was more thinking sandbox games like Mountain Blade, where I can raise an army, kill enemy leaders, and conquer cities, forever changing the world within the context of my playthrough. I like story-driven games with meaningful changes, but a lot of times I feel like I'm just along for the ride with little impact on what's going on. In Final Fantasy for example, not to pick on it, it just came up in another thread. I can't defeat any of the villains sooner than the plot gives me the opportunity to, nor can I save characters who are fated to die. I can mess around with my stats builds, and maybe do different side quests. But at the end of the game one playthrough looks very much like another. No cash shops, and just game. A lot of cult-followed games have zero cash shops or microtransactions. It makes me feel so old that I remember when the notion of in-game cash shops seemed like some heresy we'd never tolerate. All the game publishers had to do was hold out for a new generation to grow up with them present, and suddenly it's normal and okay instead of intrusive and bullshit. Autosave. I'd say autosave in tandem with hard saves. I like having the option to go back if I want. Soundtrack. After playing Cyberpunk I never realized how much I took audio cues for granted. The little ping that signals you've completed an objective. The sounds of an enemy getting louder as you close in. Combat music stopping and starting. Because the audio was so janky in Cyberpunk I spent so much of the game extremely frustrated, trying to find enemies that weren't there but still had audio playing, wandering around because I wasn't sure if I'd finished an objective. Games that nudge you in the right direction without even making you think are like working toilets. You don't even think about it until it's gone. Ark was the game that really got me into listening to sounds. I usually turn the volume off completely and listen to my own music. But when the ability to hear a raptor coming is the difference between your character dying and your character not, you learn to listen to the sounds. This is exactly why I can't game with my brother. Dude will put on something like Last of Us and turn down the volume to play his own music like the music he makes himself, which is a whole other story. Like Duck Bro. This isn't GTA 5 Online. Playing with your friends. If it's a one-player game, side missions and Easter eggs would do it for me. There isn't anything more enjoyable than playing with yourself. Open world but not too open. No microtransactions. Complete and playable at launch. Secrets. The absolute best feeling is looking at something and thinking, wouldn't it be funny if I did this and then something happens. Replayability. but not just having a good game that you can play over and over, but one that has lots of different ways to play the same thing over and over, like the Hitman games. I've played a lot of games and I'm a programmer, but not a game programmer. I enjoy it when I don't understand how a game works. Like it does something so well or unexpected that I can't even imagine how the algorithms work. GTA V would be one example. There is so much going on and it doesn't feel artificial or like a game. All at once you've got lots of vehicles driving down the streets, planes overhead, people walking, talking, dropping things, police chasing people, dogs running around, trains running. How they do all that with the game still performing decently is beyond me. Great music, intense scenes, cutscenes that you can pause, secrets to find, main bosses that aren't nearly impossible to beat, a mix of various types of gameplay, platforming, fighting, exploring, etc. Not having to do a lot of traveling, quest variety. No microtransactions, true, but what's even worse to me is ads, especially if they force you to wait and watch after every freaking match. So definitely none of those. Being a finished product that doesn't ask me for more money after I've already bought the game. Satisfying feedback. It's one of those things that you hardly even notice unless it's absent. But the feedback a game provides when an action is performed is incredibly important to how enjoyable a game is to play. If I collect something, there should be some sound or indication that that item has been added to my inventory or collection. If I hit something I'm supposed to hit, I expect there to be a corresponding sound, visual indicator, controller vibration, or combination of those things to let me know to keep doing that thing. I know it's not easy possible to implement in all genres, but I really appreciate when a game lets me change the difficulty throughout the game, instead of just at setup. Attention to detail and execution of ideas. If you got a good game, but went all shitty vector art with the art, then it'll take away my enjoyment. If the art is fire, but it's a whack-ass visual novel, same. A good lore. Fishing minigame. The entire thing being finished when it's released. Character customization. If I can't make my character look like a gremlin that eats fire hot lava and smells like the short end of the stick, I'm not interested. Specifically good character customization. Too many games have had either lacking or super finicky modes of customization and ducked it up. Also neutral, unshadowed lighting and the CC. Can't tell you how often my characters gank because the lighting and the CC screen made them look fine. Example, I was playing Dragon's Dogma and I thought I had my character looking alright in the CC lighting. Then in game, for some ducking unknowable reason, my guy had a concave face and a button looking nose. Immersion. Be it music, well written dialogue and characters, lively towns and environments, I want to feel like it's a worthy escape. As, to me, that's what video games are for. Even better when gameplay mechanics are meshed with the story narrative. Like in Vagrant's story on the PS1, when Ashley recovers repressed memories, he gets new abilities to use in combat. It's all about immersion. Tons of side quests in an open world game is, like, essential for me. There is nothing more fun than getting so lost in side quests that you forget the main storyline. Making up random stories in open world for GTA and RD are like games I have no idea how to explain it. Rather playing in the most other games and doing something unusual. Playing undisturbed, with no immediate responsibilities, with a good headset to just get lost in it for a few hours. A healthy modding community. Ability to save at any point, so you can drop the game to attend to real life things without losing progress. Time is precious. Ability to skip cutscenes and dialogue. Ability to change the difficulty mid-game, so if you're finding a game frustrating you can still complete it. Likewise, if it's too easy you can ramp up the difficulty without having to start from scratch again. If a game relies on PvP, it still has an option for bots, so that when the player base thins out and moves on you don't have totally dead game. The game can be modded. Thus the player base can make improvements and keep the game alive long after the devs have moved on. Less hand holding. Nowadays there's constantly 5 waypoints showing you where to go, 3 tooltips, a huge map, and enemies can be seen through walls by just pressing X. FFS games used to be you against the unknown, and you had to figure shit out yourself. It was much more enjoyable. Good mechanics then promote diversity of playstyles approaches. Good writing for the plot and characters. Absence of woke nonsense is a big bonus. Easy to mod, possibly the most important thing of all.